Why are you here?
What a great episode of Clone Wars. Everything you want from this show, from Star Wars, and brilliantly leading straight into Revenge of the Sith. Also, so many Easter eggs and references, so let's get started. We begin with the old-school Lucasfilm intro from the original trilogy before special editions. This is the only Clone Wars episode to begin with the movie's opening fanfare, but notice the logo and title font is red, much like the original marketing material for Return of the Jedi. So why is that? Well, who can say, but I'm guessing it's because the episode reintroduces Darth Maul. In this strategy meeting, we see Jedi Master Deepa Billaba and her young Padawan Caleb Dune, who would grow up to be Kanan Jarrus from Star Wars Rebels. There's also Ki-Adi-Mundi, and we see glimpses of these Jedi on their Outer Rim missions featured in Revenge. There's Aayla Secura on planet Felucia and Plo Koon, the Jedi who first found Ahsoka Tano. The first few episodes of the season focused on the Outer Rim sieges, and now we have a larger view of Palpatine's strategy. He wanted the more experienced Jedi lured away from the core worlds so the temple would be vulnerable.
Hello there.
So he ordered Dooku and Grievous to launch an offensive on the Outer Rim. The episode begins with the final stages of a battle. Now this is a George Lucas trademark. Every Indiana Jones film and several Star Wars films begin with the gang wrapping up one mission before starting another. This lends to the storytelling of the old movie serials that these movies were emulating to begin with. In those stories, the hero would always have to wrap up the previous episode's cliffhanger before moving on to a new adventure.
What happens next? Come on, let's see the next episode!
In this case, we get a massive ground battle featuring several familiar ships, such as the Republic gunships, the Z-95 Headhunters, which are a precursor to the X-Wings, and they're facing off against droid tri-fighters. And on the ground, they've brought out the Spider droids and these Octo droids that we saw in the Bad Batch arc. We can also see droid persuader tanks and the assault tanks from Phantom Menace. And the Republic has employed their old standby, AT-TE walkers. Now this assault is being led by Commander Cody. Obi-Wan saves his life just to make this backstab sting a little more. And it won't be the last time the show rubs salt in that particular wound. This fight is taking place on a large suspension bridge that looks an awful lot like the Golden Gate Bridge. Now why does that matter? Because Lucasfilm headquarters is in San Francisco. When Anakin showed up to face down these droids, it reminded me of what his boy would do 50 years later against his grandson. R2 has Spider-Man's powers now, which is pretty cool, and this is an ability of his that I don't think we've ever seen before. If I'm wrong, let me know in the comments. The music during this tense standoff is a track called Return of the Jedi.
It is with these thoughts in mind that I gladly surrender myself to the,
It's from the scene where Luke is about to walk the plank off Jabba's sail barge. And there's another Jedi reference here.
It's a trap, you fools. It's a trap!
After Anakin decapitates the strategy droid, jet troopers take off. And it's just the frickin' best. During this scene, I thought, this is the Jedi at their highest offensive strength. Anakin and Obi-Wan congratulating one another is a mirror to this scene in Revenge of the Sith.
Let's be fair, today you are the hero.
They speak with Admiral Yularen, who's been in several episodes of Clone Wars and Rebels, and was on the original Death Star here. He tells Anakin,
"We've received a transmission from someone using your subspace frequency, Fulcrum."
Now this is a huge Easter egg with a really tender meaning. Yularen calls this Anakin's personal subspace frequency, and at first he thinks it's Saw Gerrera, who appeared in Clone Wars, Rebels, and Rogue One. So he probably gave Saw access to this frequency when he helped train his troops on Onderon. Since Ahsoka fought with Saw Gerrera on Onderon, it makes sense that they would both have access to this channel. But it turns out that Ahsoka is using this Fulcrum frequency. Years later, Ahsoka will take on the name Fulcrum when she becomes a spy for the Rebellion, and this title would be used by several other Rebel spies, such as Cassian Andor and Alexander Kallus. But, you guys, this means that Ahsoka invented the title as a tribute to her former master. And this is way before she found out that he was a child murderer.
Ahsoka.
Anakin.
Or at least she used the same subspace frequency. In which case, did Vader hear all of these early Rebel communications? Ahsoka is with Bo-Katan, a former member of Death Watch, now leader of the splinter group Night Owls. That's why her helmet kind of looks like an owl. Now, one great thing about this episode is how it shows us that Anakin is still haunted by Ahsoka leaving the Order. This is where he began to lose faith in the Order, which pays off in Revenge of the Sith.
They asked you to do something that made you feel dishonest, didn't they?
Here, he's trying to find greater meaning in her departure.
it all makes sense now.
What? If Ahsoka hadn't left the Order, then she wouldn't have been where she needed to be.
When she walks off the ramp, we hear the Force theme, which was also played in the first episode of her arc. This is a subtle way of telling us that Ashoka is the primary character of this final act. This is the beginning of the Siege of Mandalore. Now, this event was first mentioned in Rebels, but more recently in The Mandalorian.
Has heard the songs of the Siege of Mandalore.
This is not the Great Purge that they kept referring to in that show. That comes later, after the Empire takes control of the planet. Now, the Republic can't officially invade Mandalore because it's neutral. In fact, it leads thousands of other neutral systems in the Clone Wars. And then there's this heartbreaking line.
Loyalty means everything to the clones.
Rex's battalion, the 501st, have painted their helmets like Ahsoka's face. Now, I think this storyline is going to give more emotional weight to their reunion in Rebels. To get Obi-Wan to join her cause, Bo invokes the name of her sister, Duchess Satine.
My sister. I thought she meant something to you.
She and Obi-Wan had feelings for one another before Maul killed her. And my favorite Clone Wars Easter egg is that she was named after Satine from Moulin Rouge, who also fell in love with a character played by Ewan McGregor. And after Kenobi's response,
"But I cannot allow my feelings to cloud my judgment,"
the camera lands on Anakin, who's about to let his feelings cloud his judgment in a big way. Later, Anakin will mention that they're going to split up the 501st. This is because in Revenge of the Sith, this is the division that he leads against the Jedi Temple. They mention,
What about the Chancellor?
Shaak Ti has been sent to protect him, but Master Windu has lost contact with her.
This is an Easter egg to a deleted scene in Revenge of the Sith, showing Grievous killed the Jedi Master Shaak Ti. This was also the storyline of the original Genndy Tartakovsky Clone Wars series back in 2005 that's no longer considered canon. When Ahsoka and Anakin catch up, she says,
"That as usual, you're playing politics. This is why the people have lost faith in the Jedi."
Now, this actually shows that Anakin's point of view has rubbed off on her. Remember his thoughts on politics.
You really don't like politicians, do you?
I like 2 or 3.
So he passes his frustration onto her, and she passes her disenchantment with the Order onto him, and all of this culminates in Anakin's turn to the dark side. So, Ahsoka's arc earlier in the season may have seemed unnecessary to the overall story, but it did show common people losing faith in the Jedi.
I'm sure you have your problems up there with the Jedi running around, starting wars.
Which reinforced Ahsoka's existing point of view. All of these scenes are underscored with my favorite Star Wars music, Yoda's theme. This theme has always been used to show a master teaching their Padawan a lesson, and here it shows the last time Anakin will be with Ahsoka, passing on the lightsabers that she'll use to begin the rebellion against him. This is their final meeting before they duel each other in Rebels. And also, when they duel in Rebels, a modified version of this theme will play again. So now, let's go to Mandalore. Ahsoka is returning to the planet after she taught a civics class here a few years earlier. They're fighting against troops led by Gar Saxon. He first appeared in the comic book Darth Maul, Son of Dathomir, when he broke Maul out of prison. Years later, he would become Viceroy of Mandalore under the Empire, and would be killed by Ursa Wren. In this episode, Ursa's fighting alongside Bo, but years from now, she'll become the mother of Sabine from Rebels. And this is Rook Kast, who is also an important side character in the Son of Dathomir comics. Almec is Darth Maul's puppet Prime Minister, and to show his station, he's added a military aglet to his armor. Notice how Maul's forces all have red chest plates, and some of them have horns. This look debuted in the comics as a tribute to their master. And by the way, this led to the theory that the armorer in The Mandalorian used to be a follower of Darth Maul.
This is the way.
We did a whole video about that theory if you're interested in checking that out. Also, it's the evil red Mandalorians versus the good blue Mandalorians, mirroring the color of the Jedi and Sith's lightsabers. That's pretty cool. Now, this Mandalorian is one of the few to appear in the comics, The Mandalorian, Rebels, and Clone Wars. This is your mom.
He said it! He said it!
During the battle, Ahsoka makes like an MCU hero and jumps without a parachute. That's not an Easter egg, I just thought this moment was really, really cool. When Darth Maul finally appears, he emerges from the dark, set to the same score as his first appearance in The Phantom Menace. But guys, what did you think of the episode? Let me know in the comments below. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.